Welcome to the Aegance Offscript Podcast, where we talk to industry leaders who share their stories, insights, and lessons, unfiltered and unscripted. I'm your host, Lawrence, and today I'm thrilled to have on the show Brett Matheson, the co-founder and director of operations at Metavolve. Now, Metavolve is not your run-of-the-mill strategy shop. They help growth stage founders get their time back and scale in a way that doesn't clap under its own complexity. Brett, thanks so much for joining us. Really excited to dive in.
Thanks, Ollie. I'm also excited to get in there.
Amazing. I mean, I've positioned Metavolve to a certain degree, but I'm sure you can give us a little bit more context around what it is that you do, what are your areas of operations, etc.
Yeah, so we help business leaders focus on building their business, and it's really stepping out of their day-to-day, stepping out of their managerial roles and envisioning what that looks like in the future. Uh, we are COVID baby, so we are almost 100% remote and virtual in the way in which we operate. So from an operational perspective, that was quite a big shift from in-person facilitation into really navigating that environment. In terms of my role itself, a lot of it is back end, but we're only a 3-person team, so it's everything. It's selling, it's delivering, it's making sure the systems are up and running and running effectively. And in the world that we work in now, with AI becoming such a big part of it, that's evolving on a daily basis. There's new tools that are coming out. There's new things that are replacing the need for us in many ways, but also enhancing what we can do in many ways. So it's just an evolving world when it comes to this.
Yeah, amazing. And if we look at the sort of operational function at Metavolve, I mean, how do you shape your decision architecture?
At the moment, it's mainly around our customers and what's happening and how do we respond to them. We've worked across different lifestyle stages as well as different support teams. And what I mean by support teams, it's be it internal teams within a client's business or going into their investor base and working with their investors and full portfolios. So it really comes down to the need that we're fulfilling with our client. Most of the time, it's around scaling and scaling through people and getting everybody on the same page around that. Once we've got our clients and the deliverables correct and right, then comes down to prioritization and planning. And on the planning front, we're working within tools like Notion to unpack what our capacity looks like and run from there. The bigger picture stuff, we take an annual view to it. We look at what is the next year look for us, what does the next quarter look for us, and how do we break that down into weekly or monthly milestones, and then we go from there. Obviously, there's stuff that comes up that's pretty unique, and when that does happen, Cam and I hop on a call and go from there.
Are there any examples of sort of growing pains that you guys had to navigate as that architecture evolved?
Absolutely. So we hired a strategy facilitator to come in. He had to get involved in this, and he in fact built out the first version of our Notion portal and our Notion boards, and that was a complete experiment from the get-go. It's the first time we put together a project management tool for strategy setting. Most of the time it goes into a little more detail, just looking at the overarching thing. And this was also while we were still learning how to work within the context of AI, and Notion was adding almost like every time you logged into it, there was a new update that was coming into it. So going back to the question there's always things that are shifting and changing in our environment. Sometimes it feels like firefighting to a certain degree, but most of the time it's unlocking client plugs, or there's some sort of issue that it was presenting over this, but we got to the root cause and it's actually shifting to somewhere else. And so hopefully it's answering your question. When we're going into this, because it is shifting all the time, and I guarantee you, if we have this conversation again in a month, it'll be a different answer at a different place. It's we're moving in a very dynamic space at the moment.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely believe in you. Certainly answered the question. I think being agile is probably core to your approach.
Yeah, every context is unique that we come across. Although the principles are the exact same, we can't apply the knowledge and context from one client to another. We need to understand it in that space, and especially when it comes down to team dynamics and individuals. The way one person sees the world is certainly different to another, and we unlock that with them.
And have you guys thought about scaling the strategic core of Metavolve as you're adding clients?
So scale for us is a bit of a challenge because we're so people heavy, and we do work from a methodology that is the best methodology I've seen when it comes to strategy. So what that does enable is it allows us to train and onboard facilitators into the business. So on the people side of it, certainly there. Then we're looking at groups and how we're offering our services through group cohorts or partnering with either investors through VCs or community leaders and going into that. When I say community leaders, we're talking the likes of entrepreneurs, organizations, Civitas, Opus, those entrepreneurial communities. And then there is the third spoke, which is AI. And how do we build AI into our offer, but as well as off the back of the methodology. And we get asked from a man called Nick Frangos, which is the all-in strategy methodology. And in that is exploration around how do we build an AI strategy consultant.
How do you decide, if at all, when to standardize the offering or when to keep it bespoke? I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of work that goes into every single client engagement, and sort of using a template approach might not be applicable to you guys.
So a lot of the stuff we start off with is templates and tools. Like there's certain principles, as in how well do you know your customer, and how do you unpack your knowledge around your customer so you can make it really simple for other people to understand. And the starting point is like helping you define your industry or helping you define your market segment. But then there's a chain of logic that goes off the back of that. So I'd say the starting 20% is pretty templatized. The next 80% is entirely custom to that situation, to that context, and where that conversation goes. And that comes down to the skill set of the individual facilitator that you're working with or that consultant. In a group, we've managed to standardize it really well. And groups it's a lot earlier stage businesses or a lot of earlier stage businesses. So it's unpacking where there is knowledge, where there is validated knowledge versus what are assumptions, what are elements that we think this is right, but we really don't know. We need to go talk to customers, go back. There's tools around that's more 80% templatized, and we can get to a point that's a lot more simple. Outside of that, it's really unique to the context, and with going back to the AI story, with that coming or the capability becoming stronger and stronger, we are able to build GPTs for specific use cases. As an example, when setting annual goals, what we've built is a GPT to be able to help our clients think through what their business looks like in a year's time through the form of a letter from the future. We can then take that letter from the future and then go into, okay, cool, what needs to happen in order to reach those goals? And that becomes the facilitation. So there's elements and like bespoke parts that we can templatize and create tools around, but more broader, it's really difficult to do that because of how much we meet our clients where they're at.
And just in terms of that letter from the future GPT you mentioned, I mean, could you sort of unpack that in a bit more detail? How is it delivered? What does the process look like?
Sure. So our first portfolio or group that we're working with is through Savant. We're part of their build program, and we delivered a 2-day offsite to that cohort, and it went really, really well. To the point that they wanted to make that actionable. And how do they make sure that there's measurements and metrics in place that they can help and support their founders on that journey to make it actionable? So the idea, based on the budget that was available, like we can't do the full vision setting for all 15 portfolio businesses. We have to be able to get that vision though in order to be able to set the metrics that they need to monitor on a monthly and quarterly basis. So to go to the GPT, it was a lot of the back end stuff of me just plugging like the questions that we would traditionally ask, trying to get that out, and then going into the custom GPTs, building out the work instructions, getting into it, and then just trialing it myself on Metavolve. And it was a lot of trial and error. Like what was coming out, the tone of it, how good it was going into like the follow-up questions that I could ask. And it's by no means perfect. Like for me, I think it's good enough for the job that it's there for. Would I take it outside of this closed scope of work? I'm not convinced just yet. I think there's a lot more work and effort that needs to go into it to make it there and get it to the standards that we would really want it to be, to take it to a broad market. But within the specific use case, it's good enough that it does the job. Yeah, hopefully that gives you enough context there.
Yeah, it certainly does. I think it's a great initiative. So many strategy consultancies, from my experience, they tend to get stuck in sort of great plans but poor execution. Where have you seen that friction in Metavolve or within your clients?
I'd speak more to our clients because of the size of the team that we are. For us, it's the struggle is we are the operators, we are the managers, we are the leaders all at the same time wearing that hat. Um, so I'll speak more to our clients where they've got bigger teams and they've hired professionals to come in and be the managers, and they've got operators that are there. And it's in those disconnects between those three levels that strategy and execution usually starts to fall apart, specifically how you calibrating your resources around that. Where we see a lot is that founders understand the day-to-day really well. They understand their customers really well, and they've built up a knowledge base over 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years of operating this business that it's like second nature to them. It's so much there that they've forgotten what they know and how much knowledge that they actually have. So bringing on new people and when they're communicating and handing over roles, responsibilities, work instructions, they underestimate how much knowledge this person needs to gain in order to be able to execute at a standard that's acceptable to them. And it's usually in the gap in that communication, the gap in that power dynamic that then causes executional issues down the line. And what that really looks like is, let's say, Laurie, if I hired you to work for Metavolve and come as part of it, I would say, hey, go facilitate this market segmentation workshop. Here's the work instructions, go. I would expect you to be able to deliver it. And I'm just using this hypothetically. If you aren't able to deliver it, there's a power dynamic there that it's my responsibility to make it feel safe enough that you can say, hey, Brett, I'm not sure how to do this. Can we go into more depth? But for a lot of people, being vulnerable and making that claim and saying, I need help to be able to do that is a big step. And it's in those things that trust starts eroding. It's in those micro moments that it starts separating, and then it becomes a much bigger issue. Then it turns into, hey, we're setting the strategy, but we're not executing on it. And a whole bunch of other stuff that starts happening. And then cultural issues start forming. So normally when we get called in, it's when people are burnt out and there's that chasm that's happened, and we become the people that support them in closing that chasm so that strategy and execution happen. That's the one side of it. The other side of it is just trying to do too much too soon. And spreading your resources way too thin across too many things. And that can look like having like 7 or 8 different goals active at the same time, even though the team is only 20 and you've only got 14 operators. We try to support people to get down to 3 goals that they're working towards and 3 areas that they're improving at one point in time. That focus usually gets to a much better result.
And how are you guys bridging the gap in terms of the first example that you mentioned, trying to avoid that bottleneck from happening over and over again?
When people bring us in proactively, that's the best way of doing it. Most of the time, it's reactively when there's burnouts, when there's issues, and the business has started to plateau. So I'll speak to the proactive side of it, and what that looks like is a founder and a business owner that's looking at their business and knows they need to staff up. They know they need to bring in managerial executive leadership. And then it's how do they get their context out of their head as effectively and as quickly as possible. And that's where they usually bring us in. And then it's unpacking what their market understanding is, what their market environment looks like from the market they're going after, the competitive environment, where they stand out, what value proposition that is, and their positioning around it, captured simply as well as with the depth of their context. And when people join or come into the business, you have conversations around it. You've got the documentation, you've got the thinking out, that you can speak to it in a conversation, but you can also speak to it formally through a training process. And you can also speak to it formally through GPTs, through other elements that are trained up on this thinking. And that goes across the entirety of your business. At least in our world, the strategy world, which would be vision and goals, market segmentation or market positioning, competitive advantages, customer experience, growth strategy. Those are the 5 elements that we're really focusing on and the structure that supports that. Once all of that's clear, the gap between strategy and execution becomes really, really small and really, really specific, and really around a problem that's blocking it or something that's happening in that space. And once it's that clear that it's easy to have those conversations, that gap and that power dynamic between the leader and the managers and that, it's no longer, to go back to the use case of if you were working for us, it's no longer, hey, Laurie, here's the issue that I'm seeing, and that's the issue around you, or you're not doing this. It's, hey, here's the market segmentation toolkits, and here's the workshop that we're expecting. I see you do a really good job over there, but when we start going into this, help me understand how you are facilitating X, Y, and Z. It becomes around the problem, not the individual. We're all looking at the same thing from the same perspective. We have a shared perspective around that. And that then breaks down that communication barrier. That breaks down that power dynamic. And that is specifically in founder-led businesses, it's a huge, huge issue, and it's a silent killer for a lot of people.
Yeah, makes sense, and you certainly explained it really well. So as the number of clients and engagements grows for Metavolve, I mean, how do you guys ensure that consistency in delivery, quality, and scalability, you know, can match up together?
Great question, and this is a huge challenge for us. What we have done is we've limited our capacity, and when I talk about that, there's a few different ways in which we work. We work one-on-one with clients for long-term transformation. That's anywhere from 6 months to 18 months. And that I will take on 3, Cam will take on 3. So we're very much limited on that side of things. When we look at groups, we'll look at our capacity and what's going on and when those timings line up. So at the moment, as an example, we're working with Startup Club ZA, their top 10 through their big pitch competition. Savant, we got 15 portfolio companies that we're working on through their build program. Then within Civitas, we've recently just delivered a group session through that, which was another 17 or 18 companies. So there's elements that we can go take a day or two or half day and work specifically with these groups. And then we've got a much smaller offering where it's a 1 week sprint engagement, where it's a few hours of our client's time and a lot more on our time. And that we've got a backlog for that we work towards. That's the way we're dealing with it in the short term. In the longer term, it's going to be adding capacity through facilitators. But the much longer term, how we scale beyond that, I'm not sure yet. One of our assumptions is that AI will be able to support us and be able to augment a lot of the work that we do. But I don't know how that looks just yet. I'm not sure the full capability that AI is at. And as you know all too well, it's like every week there's a new thing that's coming out. There's a new update. There's a new capability that's brought to the table that we haven't been able to work with before.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe you haven't reached this point yet, but when you do start to scale the team, and you obviously need to onboard these individuals, have you considered the process around onboarding those new team members into your methodology?
Yeah. So that's what we proved last year with Adrian, who was our facilitator that joined, and unfortunately he immigrated to Australia with his beautiful wife over there, and they're very happy in Perth. So we validated that, and what we did is we built work instructions for every workshop we did. We've got the methodology as a whole from Nick. Adrian got onboarded onto the full methodology, which is about 800 pages and 150 diagrams and all the rest of it. So it was a lot of reading, a lot of learning, a lot of upskilling, and then a lot of monitoring and observing us facilitate and going through that process. We did internal workshops as well, where Adrian worked on a couple, call it intern type clients, where it was a 2 or 3 person mom and pop shop, but they went through the strategy process there. We did that as a gift to the restaurants that we've worked with there, and we got beautiful food in return. So it wasn't all just one-way traffic. And ultimately, that's where we've gone to. We haven't looked to replace Adrian and rehire on that side of it. I think there is a use case for AI around the training, around the facilitation, and then every single workshop that we run is recorded. It's recorded for our clients' purposes as well as recorded for our purposes, so that when we're doing the documentation around it and capturing their strategy, we've got their language and their sense. So there's a lot of training materials that we've got around it that we would need to be able to repurpose on that front. And then getting live use cases in the market up and running, that would be part of that onboarding process for our clients. And then more broadly speaking, the reason why Nick partnered with us and we got the license to utilize his methodology was to become trainers of trainers and upskill other facilitators and go down that path. So Adrian was the first version of that. There will be in time a licensing program around the methodology that we would build towards. So this would be a active offering of Metavolve's and all-in strategy that we'd be taking to the market.
And just out of interest, you mentioned that you haven't replaced Adrian. Is that because there's a skills gap shortage in the market, or are you just sort of biding your time waiting for, you know, the right person to come along?
It's client side mainly. The types of clients we're working with at the moment, there isn't a need for it. The way we used to facilitate a year or two ago was two facilitators in a session. Now we've gone down to one facilitator in a session, and the reason for it is the AI note takers have become so strong and so good that whatever we miss as a facilitator is captured within that transcription and within that this need for a second facilitator just isn't there. Then the clients that we were working with a lot last year was through our partnership with Africa Arena. And in that process, there was a standardized program that was anywhere from one session through to 12 sessions per portfolio company that would go through that. And in that, there was a massive need for a facilitator that can handle that. And that's where Adrian was. Since Trump came into power and the grant funding and all the other stuff that's happened in the whole ecosystem, there hasn't been a need to replace it. And Cam and I have been able to handle the load that's come through there. Outside of that, recruiting for us will be a challenge. It's a very unique skill set, not just from the experience perspective and the technical side of it, like the actual psychological profile of the individuals we're looking for is a very, very small percentage of our population. We use psychometric tools whenever we do recruitment to ensure that they are the right, they have the right thinking style, as well as the right worldview and value orientation as to how we need people to be operating and what best suits our environment. So there is a very small population that we're looking for. Where we are lucky is we're not limited to South Africa. We will be looking at it from a time zone perspective, and as long as you can work in that time zone, then you're good. So it slightly broadens our recruitment pool, but it will be a massive challenge for us when we do go down that path and really look to scale through people.
So when you're delivering full transformation for your clients, do partnerships play a part in that at all?
Absolutely. So the way a lot of our partners frame it is that we deliver their ICPs on a platter. Reason being is they've got so clear on their strategy that it's now coming down to a resource allocation and an execution element. So in the context, we have a people partner, and when it gets down to, okay, we've got the structure in place, we now need to get the roles, we now need to find the right recruitment systems to be able to get those people involved. We need to get the onboarding plans. All of that needs to be worked on to be able to execute on the strategy. It's like, hey, here is so-and-so, they do this, and here's the need for it, here's the budget, here's the scope of work, here's everything. They have one or two conversations and they get working, and the results have been incredible in that front. Similarly, in the finance space, it's the AI space, there isn't anybody at the moment in that front, but there is this partnership model where once the strategy is clear, there's a natural fit, there's a natural step, and people then take it and run. We have a big challenge the other way around, just nature of the work that we do. On the people side of it, there is an element there because we're scaling, a lot of our clients are scaling through people and they need to get their strategy out and align their people. So our people partner has a unique insight to bring them in. Outside of that, it's very difficult for people to spot the opportunities to bring us in on. One, they don't have the skill set, but two, the relationship needed to be able to say like, hey, you need to work on your strategy, go speak to Brett and Cam, they're going to help you work on your strategy. It's almost like offensive to that person hearing that message because kind of insinuating that they don't know what they're doing or that they're not doing their job effectively. So there's a really unique way of getting into it. So from us to partners, it works really well. From partners to us, there's a challenge in the way in which we're doing that. And the packaging and positioning on that front.
In terms of choosing who you and Cam want to collaborate with from a partnership perspective, I mean, how do you make those decisions?
One, the need and the recurring need of our clients. Like if there's a unique instance of like, hey, I've got this labor issue where I'm going to the CCMA over something. It's like, it's quite unique to that situation, to that context. Like, that we don't look for partners. It's kind of like, hey, we'll go into the Civitas community and say, a client of ours is having this issue. Is there anybody that can serve? When there's more consistent needs that come up off the back of it, that's where we look to partner. When we go down to it, it's technical skill sets is a big thing for us. Like, are they technical experts in that space? So, in the people partner, as an example, that's a team of industrial psychologists. Cam is an industrial psychologist. They have to be registered to be able to go down that path, so we trust them. It's not your generalist HR manager, coordinator. They're not going to come in and just do your timesheets and work from there. They're looking at real career development. They've got to be able to work at a strategic perspective, and they've got to have the technical expertise. And then it comes down to value alignments and worldviews and do we see the world in a similar way? Are we trying to make a similar impact in the space and going down to that point? And then lastly, occasionally there's commercial terms that also make sense from one to another. We try not to have multiple people in one space. Where we do have it, there's one or two or three, and the whole point of that is on our client side of it, they've got an option and it's expedited options. They don't have to go out into the market and go do this whole search to go find their best outsourced CFO, as an example. They've got a direct access that they can solve that problem within a couple of weeks.
Yeah, super interesting. And are you saying you don't want too many voices in the room because consistency can drop off if that's the case?
It's an element of it. It's one, I don't want to manage that many expectations and manage that many relationships on the partner side of it. Like there's a bit of a selfish motive there. But more so from our client's perspective, when we start giving them too many choices and too many of this, especially when we start bringing outside experts in, it almost gets to decision fatigue or like over analysis. It's like just pick the right person for you and get going with it. When we bring in those technical people, the educational gap and especially when there's like two starts going and differentiate themselves off of their technical knowledge, and now people get confused, and in that confusion it slows the whole process. We're just trying to avoid that whole spiel. So it's more one for us, keep it simple. For our clients, here's 2 or 3 options. You pick who's the best one. You don't have to use these 2 or 3 if you want to go outside of it. And we're just trying to keep it simple so they can execute as quickly and as effectively as they possibly can.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. So Metavolve's work transitions companies from reactive operations into strategic clarity. I mean, how do you embed that clarity so that it lasts? What's the hardest part for you guys about maintaining change after you guys are done with the project or have moved on?
For us, it's actually pretty simple. What's beautiful is we separate what we're working on and prioritizing now. When I say we, I mean with our clients, and that's our clients have made the separation, where it's never a no, it's just a not now and not yet. And there's a list of like, this is what we're working on now, this is the backlog, this is what's next in the line, and all the different growth strategies are there. And we've only got resources allocated to that. We'll then check in with them on a quarterly basis and update their priorities for that quarter and all the issues that came up in that we'll address and then go into the next quarter. It's pretty rare for us to get called back in after the fact, or if there is a problem that's going on. So as an example, one of our clients is working with a huge multinational, and in that they were looking at a different pricing model in its entirety, which came up in between the 2 quarterly offsite or the quarterly updates. And in that, it has massive consequences to the entirety of their business. So we've supported them through a scenario planning exercise where it was, if this happens, then what? If that happens, then what? And how do they facilitate their negotiations through that whole process? That's quite a unique use case. Most of the time, it's on a quarterly basis that we update, and everything that we're trying to instill and get across to our clients needs to be sustainable in our client's business. We don't want to hold the IP and their managerial IP in our business, and we're not going from one problem to the next problem to the next problem, which is creating a cash flow issue for us, because that's the typical management consulting route and strategy consulting is just find a problem and go to the next. For us, it's no, we want this to be sustainable in your teams, in your business. And that's a factor of success for us. Then on an annual basis, we'll do a reset and go there. So for us, it's once off, getting everything out, getting everything clear, then updating on a quarterly basis at the end of the year, do an annual reset, do your new budget, run it in the year with a strategy that's been signed off by your board.
Mm.
If you have any unforeseen problems that come up in between, we're a phone call away, a WhatsApp message away, an email away. We'll see how we can support you either through our channel partnership network, or if there's something that we can go directly and help you with, we'll support you on that front. But the whole premise and the whole promise is that this is sustainable inside of your business, not inside of our business.
Gotcha. I think that's a pretty solid framework. I mean, in your view, what separates clients who sustain gains versus those who slide back?
I don't want to sound arrogant, but I can't think of many slide backs, if any. And there's one that's kind of coming to mind, but it's more from our perspective, a slide back, not from his perspective. And for context, as opposed to growing his business more, he wanted to spend more time surfing. So he made the deliberate decision. So instead of growing the business by 50 to 150% more that year, he rather wanted to grow the business by 30% and spend, when he wanted to go surf, he wanted to go surf and actually have the ability to go do that. So that's on that side of it. When there has been slide backs, it's been, and one of our favorites, in fact, our favorite client, their revenue actually declined by 22%, but their overall net profit increased by, I think, like 28 or 32%. Reason being is they shifted their focus between their two business units. One was quite a time and materials based business model where there was a lot of materials going into it. The other side of it was time and materials where it was mainly time. And in that, there was a much higher profit margin, was a much better business for them, and that's what excited them more. They switched focus from the construction, the heavy material side of it to the servicing side. And in that, revenue started to decline, but profitability went up. Satisfaction went up on internal satisfaction as well as external satisfaction. So that's definitely there. And there are points where clients have just been disrupted. So, example, a software development firm that we worked with landed literally double their previous year's annual contracted value in their contract. And that contract then got paused through the whole US aid fall away and everything else that happened there. 6 months later, they had replaced that revenue again and took on. The strategy was the same thing, just that client that landed, it just became a different client 6 months later. So obviously there are shifts in the dynamics of everybody's businesses, but once they've worked with us, the clarity is there that it's either intentional or very recoverable when that happens.
And how is technology, and when I say technology, I'm really mean AI, how is that shaping the way that Metavolve is delivering value? I mean, we've touched on how it can deliver value for your clients, but internally, how is it giving you guys some value?
It's been huge. So what we do today versus what we did 2.5 years ago is fundamentally different. The outputs, the productivity that Cam and I are able to achieve is enormous. Like, if I look back to my Amend consulting days, which was in the US, we're producing the equivalent of a 10 to 20 person team on the two of us, just because of the research, the executional capacity that's ChatGPT and the other LLMs are giving us, or the other GPTs are giving us. And where that comes into is like, we'll have a sales call, get the transcript into it. That speeds up our proposal writing process drastically, as well as makes it a better proposal. At the end of workshops, when we need to write reports and capture our client strategy, as opposed to it being Cam and I trying to get our client's language the best as we can, we've actually got their language in their transcript. We can use that to build their patterns and go from there. In actually collecting information for client delivery, like I was saying earlier, we built our first GPT. Where we're looking to take it is we're trying to get rid of the coordination effort between Cam and I and our clients in terms of scheduling, in terms of getting the pre-read materials to them, in terms of being able to interact where they are in their process. All of those types of elements it's valuable, but it's really low value, but makes a big difference in the admin side of it is there. Then there are certain outputs that are relatively standardized that if we just give it the inputs, it can do the work for it. So there's a lot of augmentation work that we're looking at doing. In our founder mirror workshop, as an example, there's what that comes down to is validate what's good, spot any blind spots that are there, and then build a roadmap to be able to get to their potential. like there's a standardized output in that. At the moment, Cam and I are building it. Like a GPT could easily come into it and build that output for us. Um, it was one or two other use cases. Like in these conversations, because we're working with transcripts, it's being able to generate content off the back of the insights that we were able to deliver in sales calls or within client workshops and meetings. There's always this new insight, this new learning, it's this new spark through a client question that we answer that can generate content. And the content generation is a weakness for me. Like I personally, I hate going on LinkedIn and posting. Hence why if you look at my LinkedIn, it's pretty like scarce. But the insights that we are able to generate is of a high standard, or at least we believe it to be of a high standard. Our clients believe it to be a high standard. It's getting that message out there. The weakness is actually developing it, building the content, getting it put into LinkedIn, releasing it, and then posting and commenting and. There's a use case for that content to be developed off the back of our conversations as opposed to us actually sitting and going down. So there's all these types of elements that we're looking at. And the ultimate, like the unicorn thing for us would be to have a AI agent in our workshops that we can it's listening to the conversation, adding different questions that we haven't thought of, or spotting blind spots, and it's building out reports or thinking based on the conversational flow. But I think that's a unicorn for a year or two down the line. I don't think that's like a right now thing that it's capable of doing just yet.
And is your position on agentic AI that you guys would rather develop in-house than, go outsourced?
I don't want to develop in-house.
Okay.
It's I know myself. I'm curious. I like the novelty of it. I'd probably do one half decently, then get bored with it, and then put it on a shelf and go from there. And the challenge is more the figuring it out for the first time than actually building this to work and make it sustainable. So something like that, we would look at it through the lens of a digital employee, and then how would we build a digital employee? It's not like I don't want to be the person doing that. Cam doesn't want to be the person doing that. We don't want to go recruit and hire and do all of that stuff. So if we were to build it, it would be an external expert in the space with a team of experts that are able to do that. It wouldn't be ourselves. And it's like trying to recruit, manage, lead a person like that. Like it distracts us from the work and where we provide the most value, which is delivering facilitations, workshops, and one-on-one time with our clients.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. So, Brett, if we sort of step back and we look at the strategy and growth consulting space from a bit more of a macro view, I mean, it is quite a crowded space. How do you think about differentiating yourself without sort of overcomplicating the message?
Yeah, it ultimately comes down to you working directly with Cam and I and like the personal relationship that we have with our clients. Like that, you can't replicate that. And when we look at our competitors, you're going to be working with a coach or a consultant, not that person selling it to you. So there's an immediate difference there. More broadly, we've got the method that we work from, where we're the only providers of that method. That's a very technical purchase. So it's in the internal world of Metavolve, it's a massive differentiator. In the external world of our clients, it's like, meh, it doesn't really matter. Everybody's got their method and goes down that path.
Mm.
And then it just comes down to how do we deliver the ethos and making it sustainable inside of your business. In our space, it's a massive challenge going down this path because all of it's words until you actually start working with someone. And once you start working with someone, then you can see and experience it. The way in which we are growing and people are experiencing the difference between us and others is by actually experiencing it, coming to a group workshop, doing the founder mirror, doing a breakthrough sprint and getting that clarity. And there we're getting unbelievable feedback. And as an example, a client of ours that's worked with, like literally, if we had to list out all our direct competitors, she's worked with every single one of them. And the description and the videos she's been sending us, it's of a person that's been colorblind their whole life, getting glasses that help them see color for the first time. And off the back of that, it's a completely different world. That's the type of experience our clients are getting. How do I package that? How do I put it in a box? How do I define that and make it there so that it's different? Is very, very difficult. And that's what we're trying to get more people to do. So it's just to get that first experience, see what seeing the world in colors for the first time, what that really means, and going
Mm.
from there.
And something that we haven't touched on yet are your clients. I mean, who are your ideal clients and how do they usually find you?
So our ideal client base is people with staff complements of anywhere from 40 to 80, and it's in that realm. Generally, they are first-time founders, the first time they're going through those transitions. And what that looks like is they needing to hand over managerial responsibility to other people the first time, or leadership responsibility to other people. It's outside of their span of control. They need structures in place. They need to be able to go there. They need to be able to install their knowledge of their market understanding to other people. And ultimately, they need to get board sign off on the strategy. And not just like a tick box exercise board sign off. It's board sign off as in people are enthusiastic, they're confident, there's conviction around the strategy, and they've put budget behind it. How we get there is the challenge, because in that 40 to 80 person mark, that's usually where you're so busy doing the work, doing the managing, doing the leading that you've just got no time to get into it. So the way in which we're getting there is through a rock pool strategy, which is basically being in the different communities, being in the Leica Network, Civitas, Opus, anywhere where founders are, it's there. Referrals off the back of our clients and um, other mentors or advisors that we work with or investors, because that's where these founders are. It's that generally they're at the point of burnout looking for help, and they're going to mentors or investors or other peers. And off the back of that, they're saying, hey, you need to speak to Brett and Cam, or it's people that have gone through the groups and have experienced it with us. On the smaller scale markets, it's through personal relationships, it's through the networks, it's through VCs and portfolios bringing us into that environment. And then internationally, it's direct relationship. It's our clients. Relium is their parents used to be friends with Cam's parents, and then Cam bumped into their mom and I think at the airport or something, and then off the back of that it was, hey, you need to speak to Mike and Dave. Like they think, like she thinks that they would use our services. Off the back of that, we started working together. That was about a year ago, and they are our favorite clients. From a results perspective, from a size, from a team dynamics, like all of it's there, and that's like serendipitous. Like to try and make that replicable is very, very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And that's our existing challenge right now. It's that point of we're outside of our immediate network. We've worked with the people in our immediate network. It's now getting into that next layer, that next tier. And that's where there's the whole suite of services like the founder mirrors that's come into it.
And when you think about the next 3 to 5 years for Metavolve, I mean, what kind of company do you want it to become? And what impact do you want it to make on the businesses that you work with?
The 3 to 5 vision for Metavolve is shifting like almost every single day based on like the conversations that's in front of us. But the thing that is very consistent is that the strategy of our client's business needs to live inside of that business. It doesn't live with us. Our role is the guide. We are the thinking partner to our clients to get that out and get that into their head. Our role is to try and get rid of that legacy thinking, the stuff that was valid 2, 3, 4 years ago when the business was smaller, didn't have the reputation. Get that out of our clients' head, distill it, see what's really true today and what's true for their future, and help them see clarity or see clearly on that front, but have a lot of confidence around taking that to market. And then ultimately scaling their business so that they can take a 1, 2, 3 week family holiday, actually switch off, and their business grows without them being there. And obviously, to do that, you need the financial growth that's going to come off your business. You need the lifestyle improvements that you're not burning out. You're not doing the 12, 13, 14-hour days. You're not worried about every single thing that's going to go wrong in your business. That's the ultimate impact that we're wanting to do. And for me personally, and I can speak for Cam on this front, is when we see our clients' eyes light up with the realizations that get them there, like that's very difficult to put a price tag on that. That's really what motivates us to do that. What Metavolve looks like in 3 to 5 years, there's so many different versions of what it could be. It could be a sanctuary for entrepreneurs where it's an offsite facility and you're going in there to work on your business. It could be a digital asynchronous AI agent that you're having these conversations. We have a more advanced conversation or we need a more advanced decision. You then chat to us and chat to an individual. It could be an accelerator program that's built into almost every VC that's going on and happening. And the issue that we're facing is like all four of these could become a reality in the next 3 to 5 years. all four of those visions are like there's progress happening to all of it. How that converges, I don't know. We are still very much in a space that is being disrupted through AI. Nobody really knows what the endpoint looks like for that just yet, but we need to be able to adapt to what's going on and what our clients' needs are as that starts shifting.
And do you think it's a case of needing to converge those potentials into one, or picking one or two to focus on?
Like the accelerator side of it, like that is what it is. Like working with us, when you work with us on a weekly basis, your business is going to get accelerated. It's the nature of the beast. How that plugs into a VC, I don't know. Or how that plugs into a portfolio of companies, I don't know yet. That would need to happen. But at the moment, we're doing it on a one-on-one basis in 6 to 18 month horizons. So that's valid. That's going to be happening. The other three sections of that, those are more personal aspirations for Cam and I and Nick and what's going on in the world and how we build towards that. Like those are our adjacent, more founder-orientated visions and things we see within the world that can become true. Right now, those are just things that drive us and drive our motivation and drive for where we're trying to get the business so that when we're having a cut day, we can sit back and say, okay, this is what we're building for. But the core of the business is that one-to-one work, that one-to-one acceleration, that one-to-one transformation that happens inside of our clients' businesses. And that's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And Brett, if our listeners and viewers want to reach out and connect to you, Cam, Metavolve, where's the best place for them to do that?
LinkedIn would be the best place. So Brett Matheson on LinkedIn or Cameron Coots. If they're looking to follow some of the stories that we're working through, our podcast called The Founder Files is a great place to understand some of those scaling stories and how people have gone through those transitions, what those challenges were, how they worked through that. Our website is, I don't want to say hopelessly out of date, but there's been a lot of involvement off the back of that we'll probably have to update again in the new year. So go to that. You'll get some insights, but the best place to learn would be just talking directly to us. Starting point would be LinkedIn.
Excellent. Well, yeah, Brett, thank you so much for joining us on the Aegance Offscript podcast. It's been a fascinating dive into Metavolve, your early days to where you are currently and what the sort of future looks like for you. It's been really good. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Lars.
That's it for today's episode of the Aegance Offscript podcast. If this conversation sparked something, a thought, a question, or a new way of seeing your own business, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. We'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.